The day Earth decided to speak again was, frankly, the worst possible day for me. I, Senior Communications Officer Vazik Norun of the Galactic Union Council, had just spilled my morning cup of Jovian coffee on my brand new uniform. The purple stain spread across my chest like some sort of unfortunate battle wound. What a fantastic way to start the 400th cycle since my hatching. Brilliant. Just brilliant, I muttered, dabbing at the stain with a sanitizing cloth that only seemed to make it worse. My three eyes blinked in frustration as I watched the fabric soak up the liquid and spread it further. My assistant Pelora, a lanky centaurian with too many limbs and not enough common sense, poked her head through my office door. Her face tentacles curled in that annoying way they always did when she was excited about something. Sir, you need to see this," she chirped, waving a data pad frantically in one of her upper appendages. "Unless that pad contains instructions on how to remove Jovian coffee from a 900-credit uniform, I'm really not interested," I growled, tossing the now ruined cloth into the recycler. "It's Earth, sir." They have broken silence. I froze. My third eye, the one that always betrayed my emotions, widened dramatically. "That's not funny, Pelora. Earth hasn't transmitted anything in 300 years. Not since the isolation protocol." "I'm not joking, sir." She thrust the data pad at me, nearly poking one of my eyes out in her enthusiasm. "Look, signal detected from Sol's system originating from Earth's primary communication array. It started broadcasting 18 minutes ago." I snatched the pad from her, my heart's beating faster as I scanned the information displayed. Impossible. And yet, there it was. Clear as a Martian sunrise, a signal. I am from Earth. After 3 centuries of absolute silence. "Alert the Grand Secretary," I said, my voice suddenly hoarse. "And get me a clean uniform." 30 minutes later, I stood nervously in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Union Council. My freshly replicated uniform was uncomfortable and smelled too strongly of synthetic fibers, but at least it wasn't stained with coffee. Around the massive circular table sat the representatives of the 53 most powerful species in our section of the galaxy. Some were physical presences, others mere holograms, but all wore expressions of confusion, concern, or outright hostility. Well, those with faces did anyway. The gaseous Morpholians just sort of bubbled ominously. At the head of the table sat Grand Secretary Ulan Tar, a massive draconian whose scales had faded from their once vibrant crimson to a dull burgundy with age. His claws tapped rhythmically against the polished stone surface of the table, the only sound in the otherwise silent chamber. "Officer Norun," he rumbled, his voice like distant thunder. "I understand you have interesting news." I swallowed hard, feeling the collective gaze of the most powerful beings in the galaxy boring into me. "Yes, Grand Secretary. At 0600 hours Standard Time, our monitoring stations detected a transmission from Earth. After 300 years of silence, they are broadcasting again." A murmur rippled through the assembly. The Archelian representatives' spines bristled visibly. The Morpholian representatives' containment field clouded dark orange with alarm. "What do they say?" asked Ambassador Jex Tula of the Procyon Collective, her luminescent eyes blinking rapidly. I hesitated. That's the thing. It's not what we expected. The message is on repeat. It simply says, "We noticed what you did. We are coming to talk. Prepare yourselves." The chamber erupted into chaos, an outright threat, bellowed the Taurian representative, slamming his hooved fist onto the table. "They cannot be allowed to leave their system," squeaked Representative Ixel of the Rigelian Commonwealth. The Grand Secretary raised a clawed hand, and silence fell immediately. "Officer Norun, what is your analysis of this message?" I cleared my throat, suddenly aware of how dry my mouth had become. "It's ambiguous, sir. The humans were always like that, frustratingly vague. But there's something else." The message was transmitted simultaneously in all 53 official languages of the Galactic Union, plus 37 extinct ones. The linguistic precision is perfect. More murmurs, this time with an undercurrent of grudging respect. 300 years of silence, and they have been studying us the entire time, mused Ambassador Locks of the Sirius hegemony. Clever monkeys. What could they mean, what you did? Asked a holographic representative from the far corner, whose species I couldn't immediately identify. I had been wondering the same thing. Unknown, sir. As you all know, after the Proxima incident, we have maintained the isolation protocol around the Sol system. Observation only, no contact. Nothing should have provoked this response. Unless they detected our observation platforms, suggested Yulon Tar, his ancient eyes narrowing. The humans were always sensitive about their privacy. The uncomfortable silence that followed confirmed what everyone was thinking, but no one wanted to say. If the humans had detected our surveillance, had been watching us watching them for 3 centuries, what else might they know? Yulon Tar rose to his full, impressive height. We need more information. Officer Naroon, you will prepare a delegation to meet the human representatives when they arrive. You have the most extensive knowledge of human culture and history in the Council. I felt my stomachs drop. Sir, my expertise is theoretical, historical. I have never actually met a human. Nobody has, not in 300 years. Then I suggest you study quickly, he replied, with the barest hint of amusement in his rumbling voice. Because according to our deep space monitoring arrays, a vessel has already left the Sol system, moving at speeds we cannot quite explain. They will be here in 5 days. Wow. 5 days. To prepare for a meeting with a species that had voluntarily isolated itself from the galactic community for 3 centuries. A species known for its unpredictability, its technological ingenuity, and if the historical records were accurate, its capacity for both tremendous compassion and terrifying violence. Oh, and they were apparently angry about something. Wonderful. So, let me get this straight, said Telox Vin, my newly assigned security officer, as we walked briskly through the diplomatic wing of the station. These humans, they have been silent for 300 years, and now they are suddenly coming for a chat? And we have no idea why. Telox was Arcturian, a species known for their physical prowess and direct manner of speaking. His blue-gray skin was crisscrossed with the ritual scars of his warrior caste, and he stood a full head taller than me. Not the most diplomatic presence, perhaps, but I was glad to have him on my team. That's the gist of it, I replied, struggling to keep pace with his long strides. After the Proxima incident, they enacted something they called the Sol Accord. They dismantled their interstellar communication network, recalled all their ships and citizens from off-world locations, and essentially sealed their entire system off from the rest of the galaxy. And what exactly was this Proxima incident? The briefing was vague. I sighed. This was the uncomfortable part. 300 years ago, a coalition of species, all members of the Galactic Union, attempted to establish a military presence in the Proxima Centauri system, Earth's nearest stellar neighbor. The humans had a small research colony there. They viewed the military buildup as a direct threat. Was it? Telox asked bluntly. The official position of the Council is that it was a peacekeeping force, established to maintain stability in the region. And unofficially? I glanced around to ensure we were alone in the corridor. Unofficially? Several Council members were concerned about the rapid advancement of human technology. In just a few centuries, they'd gone from primitive chemical rockets to drives that could bend space-time. Some species felt threatened. Telox grunted. So a preemptive show of force, which backfired spectacularly, I added. The humans destroyed the entire fleet without a single casualty on their side. Technology we couldn't understand. Then, instead of pressing their advantage, they just went home, sealed their borders, went silent. Until now. Until now, I agreed. We arrived at my newly assigned office, a spacious chamber filled with view screens and data terminals. A holographic representation of the Sol system floated in the center of the room, Earth highlighted in blue. The team is assembled and waiting, sir, announced Pelora, who had somehow managed to get here before us despite having half as many legs as Telox. Around a conference table sat the remaining members of our hastily assembled human response team. Dr. Milazan, our xenobiologist, a Rigelian with pale green skin and large, thoughtful eyes. Diplomat Caro Sennett from Altair, whose species' natural empathic abilities made him invaluable in negotiations. And finally, technical specialist Boro Lash, a Tau Seton, whose six-fingered hands were rumored to be able to interface with any technology in the galaxy. Officer Norun, Mila greeted me, her voice melodious. We have been reviewing the historical data on humans, but there are significant gaps, particularly regarding the last 3 centuries. That's to be expected, I said, taking a seat at the head of the table. The isolation protocol worked both ways. We know they have continued to develop within their system mining operations on their asteroid belt, terraforming projects on Mars and Venus, large-scale structures orbiting most of their outer planets, but the specifics of their technological advancement remain unknown. What about their biology? Asked Telox, leaning against the wall instead of sitting. Weaknesses? Strengths? Dr. Zan shot him a disapproving look. They are carbon-based bipeds. Average lifespan now extended to approximately 200 standard years through genetic modification. They require oxygen, water, and organic sustenance, standard gravity tolerance with moderate adaptability to variations. That doesn't tell me what I need to know, growled Telox. What you need to know, I interjected, is that we are preparing for a diplomatic meeting, not a confrontation. The humans have given no indication that they are arriving with hostile intent, except for that ominously vague message, muttered Boro, his fingers dancing over a datapad. We noticed what you did. Not exactly warm and fuzzy, is it? Which brings us to our first priority, I said, ignoring the comment. We need to figure out what they think we did. Ideas? Caro Sennett spoke for the first time, his voice soft but carrying an authority that made everyone pay attention. Perhaps it's not what we did recently, but what we have been doing all along. The isolation protocol included observation platforms around the Sol system. Surveillance. They should have been undetectable, argued Boro. The technology was 300 years old, I finished for him, and we are talking about humans. If their rate of advancement continued along the same trajectory as before their isolation, I let the implication hang in the air. The humans had always been technological prodigies, advancing in decades what took other species centuries. 300 years was a long time to innovate, especially for a species that felt threatened. So they know we have been watching them, said Telox. That hardly seems worth breaking 3 centuries of silence. Unless they also know why, suggested Mila, the real reason for the Proxima incident. A heavy silence fell over the room. The real reason. The thing even I, with my highest level clearance, only knew fragments of. The discovery that had made certain members of the Council fear humanity enough to risk an act of aggression against them. We need to know exactly what they know, I finally said. And we have 5 days to figure it out before they arrive. Boro's datapad suddenly chimed, an urgent alert that made us all jump. His eyes widened as he read the information displayed. Make that 3 days, he said, his voice unusually subdued. Their ship just passed the outer marker of the Arcturus system. They are moving much faster than we anticipated. 3 days to prepare for a meeting that could reshape the political landscape of the galaxy. 3 days to figure out what the humans knew, what they wanted, and how to respond. And somewhere out there in the darkness of space, a ship from Earth was hurtling toward us, carrying representatives of a species that had chosen isolation over interaction for longer than most beings in this room had been alive. I had a feeling I was going to need a lot more Jovian coffee. The next 3 days passed in a blur of frantic preparation. Sleep became a distant memory as our team worked around the clock, digging through ancient archives and piecing together fragments of classified information about humanity's final days before their self-imposed exile. I found something, announced Boro on the morning of the second day. His 6 fingers moved with hypnotic precision across the holographic interface, buried deep in the Council's classified archives. A communication from 301 years ago just before the Proxima incident. We gathered around his workstation, bleary-eyed from lack of sleep but instantly alert. "It's a message from Admiral Zentar of the Combined Fleet to the High Council," Boro continued, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Requesting permission to—" "Oh? Oh what?" demanded T-Lox. "Spit it out, technician." Boro swallowed visibly. "Permission to deploy the quantum scanner on the human research facility at Proxima Centauri." I felt my blood run cold. The quantum scanner? That technology was theoretical, even back then. It was designed to forcibly extract data from any information storage system, finished Mila, her green skin paling considerably, including organic ones. "You mean brains," said T-Lox bluntly. They wanted to rip information directly from human minds. The implication hung heavy in the air. The quantum scanner had been banned by the Galactic Union even before it was fully developed, deemed too invasive and potentially destructive to be ethical. The fact that the Combined Fleet had one, and had sought permission to use it on humans. "Did they deploy it?" asked Caro, his empathic antennae quivering with distress. Boro scrolled through the document. The response is redacted. But there's a follow-up report. The human facility detected an unauthorized scan attempt and responded with proportional defensive measures. "Proportional?" snorted T-Lox. "They destroyed the entire fleet. For attempting to violate the most fundamental privacy of their minds?" countered Mila. "Many species would consider that an act of war." I tapped my claw against the table, thinking hard. This changes things. If the humans discovered that the Council authorized an attempt to forcibly extract information from their researchers' minds, it would explain both their reaction and their subsequent isolation. "But why break that isolation now?" wondered Caro. "After 3 centuries? And what did they mean by what you did?" added Mila. "This incident was 300 years ago." I had no answers. Only a growing sense of unease that we were still missing something crucial. By the morning of the 3rd day, the news of humanity's impending arrival had spread throughout the station. The corridors buzzed with nervous energy as beings from dozens of worlds speculated about what it might mean. The Grand Secretary had ordered a full session of the Council to receive the human delegation, an honor typically reserved for only the most momentous occasions. "Your formal attire, sir," said Pelora, handing me a package as I entered my office. The Grand Secretary's office delivered it this morning. All members of the greeting party are required to wear the ceremonial colors. I opened the package to find an elaborate robe in the deep blue and silver of the Galactic Union. It looked uncomfortable and pretentious, perfect for politics. "Any updates on the human vessel?" I asked, reluctantly setting aside my standard uniform. "It entered the outer defense perimeter an hour ago," replied Pelora, her tentacles waving in agitation. It's like nothing we have ever seen, sir. The technical department is having fits trying to analyze it, put it on screen." The main view screen flickered to life, showing a real-time image from one of the station's external cameras. I stared, momentarily speechless. The human ship defied conventional design principles. Instead of the typical disk, sphere, or cylinder shapes favored by most spacefaring species, it resembled, actually, I wasn't sure what it resembled. The central structure was an elongated, tapering form that somehow seemed to both reflect and absorb light. Extending from this were what appeared to be enormous, translucent fins or sails that shimmered with subtle iridescence. The entire vessel pulsed with a gentle blue-white glow. "It's not using any known form of propulsion," continued Pelora. "No ion trails, no warp signature, no quantum bubble. It's just moving. And the energy readings are off the charts, but we can't identify the source." 300 years, I murmured. 300 years of development isolated from the rest of the galaxy, driven by who knows what mixture of fear, determination, and ingenuity. "Sir?" "What?" I shook myself from my reverie. "Nothing." "When will they dock?" "That's another thing, sir. They are not approaching the docking bays." They have taken up position precisely 1,000 kilometers from the station and they are just waiting there. I frowned. Have they made contact? No, sir. Complete silence since their initial message. A chime from my personal communicator interrupted us. It was a summons from the Grand Secretary himself. The council was assembling early, prompted by the unexpected behavior of the human vessel. It's beginning, I said, more to myself than to Pelora. Send the team to Council Chamber B. We may be called upon at short notice. The Grand Chamber was filled to capacity, with representatives of all 53 member species present either physically or as holograms. The tension in the air was palpable, a mixture of fear, curiosity, and anticipation. Grand Secretary Yulon Tar occupied his central position, his ancient face unreadable. On the massive view screen behind him floated a real-time image of the enigmatic human vessel, still maintaining its precise distance from the station. The human ship has been in position for nearly 2 standard hours, announced Yulon Tar, his deep voice silencing the murmurs that had filled the chamber. They have made no attempt to communicate further, nor have they responded to our hails. Typical human psychological tactic, growled the Taurian representative. They seek to unnerve us by forcing us to wait to demonstrate their control of the situation. Perhaps, conceded Yulon Tar. Or perhaps they are simply following their own protocols. In either case, we must. He was interrupted by a sudden flash on the view screen. A brilliant blue light erupted from the human vessel, striking the station with pinpoint precision. But instead of damage, it produced music? Yes, music. A hauntingly beautiful melody filled the council chamber, seemingly emanating from the walls themselves. And then, a voice. A human voice, speaking in perfect galactic standard. Greetings, representatives of the Galactic Union. We are the delegation from Earth. We request permission to come aboard your station for diplomatic discussions. We will be arriving in a party of 3, unarmed and ready to talk. Yulon Tar recovered quickly from his surprise. Permission granted. We will receive you in Docking Bay 7. Thank you, replied the voice. We will not be using your docking facilities. Please clear the center of your council chamber. We will arrive there directly in 60 seconds. Before anyone could protest this unprecedented breach of protocol, the transmission ended and the music faded. Yulon Tar's eyes narrowed, but he gave a curt nod to his security staff. Clear the center of the chamber as requested, and be ready for anything. A flurry of activity followed as the central area was hastily vacated. Security personnel took up positions around the perimeter, weapons at the ready despite the humans' claim of coming unarmed. I found myself ushered to one side along with the rest of my team, our carefully prepared greeting protocols now apparently irrelevant. 50 seconds, announced a computerized voice. Can they actually teleport? Whispered Mila beside me. That technology has eluded even the most advanced species in the Union. We are about to find out, I replied, my heart's racing. 40 seconds. Telox moved closer to us, his hand resting on his sidearm. I don't like this. Too many unknowns. 30 seconds. Caro's empathic antennae were fully extended, quivering slightly. I sense anticipation. Not hostility. At least, not yet. 20 seconds. Boro was frantically tapping at his datapad. Energy buildup detected. But it's like nothing in our databases. It's not conventional matter-energy conversion. 10 seconds. The chamber fell completely silent. Even breathing seemed too loud. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A column of swirling blue light appeared in the center of the chamber, coalescing into 3 distinct forms. The light intensified briefly, then vanished, leaving 3 figures standing where moments before there had been empty space. Humans. Actual, living humans in the flesh, standing before the assembled might of the Galactic Union for the first time in 3 centuries. My first impression was that the historical records hadn't done them justice. They were taller than I'd expected, with a physical presence that commanded attention despite their relatively simple anatomy. Two appeared male, one female, by human gender standards. All three wore identical garments, form-fitting suits of a material that seemed to shift colors subtly as they moved, ranging from deep blue to silver gray. The female human stepped forward. Her skin was a rich brown, her hair cropped close to her skull. Her eyes, a startling amber color, surveyed the chamber with calm intensity. "I am Director Amara Okafor of the Earth Diplomatic Corps," she said, her voice carrying easily through the chamber without apparent amplification. "With me are Science Attached Dr. James Patel and Security Coordinator Leo Barrett. We thank you for receiving us." Yulan Tar rose from his seat, drawing himself up to his full impressive height. "I am Grand Secretary Yulan Tar of the Galactic Union Council. On behalf of all member species, I welcome you to Central Station. It has been a long time." Director Okafor nodded. 327 standard years, to be precise. And we appreciate the courtesy of this reception, especially given the circumstances of our last interaction. I watched the humans carefully. Their body language was controlled, professional, but I caught subtle signs of tension, the slight stiffness in their postures, but the careful positioning that kept all three of them facing different sections of the chamber. They were wary, despite their outward composure. Yulan Tar gestured to the empty seats that had been hastily prepared. "Please join us at the council table. We have many questions." "As do we," replied Okafor. "But first, a demonstration of good faith." She made a small gesture, and the human called James Patel stepped forward. From a compartment in his suit, he removed a small, crystalline cube that glowed with an inner light. He placed it carefully on the floor before them. "What is this?" asked Yulan Tar, his voice betraying a hint of suspicion. "A gift," said Patel, speaking for the first time. His voice was deeper than Okafor's, with a slight melodic quality. "And a demonstration. Please observe." The cube began to pulse with light, and suddenly the air above it shimmered. A three-dimensional projection appeared, showing a star system I recognized immediately, Proxima Centauri. But the projection zoomed in on the research facility that had once occupied the second planet, the site of the infamous incident 3 centuries ago. 301 years ago, narrated Patel, this facility detected an unauthorized quantum scanning attempt, an attempt to forcibly extract data from the minds of our researchers. The projection shifted, showing the approaching fleet that had been destroyed. Murmurs broke out around the chamber. "Our response was proportional and targeted," continued Patel. "No lives were lost. The fleet was disabled, not destroyed. All crew were safely returned to their respective worlds." This revelation caused an even greater stir. The historical records had always claimed the fleet was completely destroyed, with all hands lost. Had that been a lie? After this incident, Patel went on, humanity made a collective decision. We were not ready for galactic politics. The attempted mind scanning proved that. So we withdrew. We focused inward, developing our technology, our society, our understanding of ourselves and the universe. We sealed our borders but never stopped observing, learning, growing. The projection changed again, showing the Sol system as it appeared now a thriving, interconnected network of planets, moons, and space habitats buzzing with activity. It was a far cry from the relatively primitive system I'd studied in historical archives. "For 300 years we have respected your borders, your rules, your civilizations," said Director Okafor, picking up the narrative. "We asked only the same in return, to be left in peace, to develop without interference or espionage." Yulan Tar's expression darkened. If this is about the observation platforms, they were a necessary security measure. The Council had a responsibility to monitor potential threats. "We are not here about the observation platforms," interrupted Okafor, her voice suddenly hard as stone. "We knew about those from the beginning. Childish technology, easily detected and monitored." She paused, letting her words sink in. "No, we are here about what happened 47 days ago. The attempt to deploy a Class 9 reality distortion device at the edge of our system. The chamber erupted into chaos. A Class 9 RDD was a theoretical weapon, designed to alter the fundamental physical constants within a targeted volume of space. Such a device, if it worked, could render an entire star system uninhabitable by changing the very laws of physics within it. Lontar's face betrayed nothing, but his tail, usually kept perfectly still in formal settings, twitched once. The Galactic Union Council authorized no such action. If any such attempt was made, it was without our knowledge or consent. The Director Okafor's gaze was unflinching. We detected the device. We traced its origin to this station, and we neutralized it before it could be activated. That is why we are here today. Not for vengeance, not for retribution, but for truth and justice. The third human, Security Coordinator Barrett, finally spoke. His voice was unexpectedly gentle for someone with such an imposing physical presence. We wish to know who authorized this attempt and why. We wish to ensure it never happens again. And we wish to finally, after 3 centuries, establish relations with the Galactic Union that are based on mutual respect rather than fear and suspicion. Silence fell over the chamber. I found myself holding my breath, waiting for Lontar's response. This was the pivotal moment that would determine the course of galactic politics for centuries to come. But before the Grand Secretary could speak, a commotion broke out on the far side of the chamber. Ambassador Jex Tula of the Procyon Collective suddenly rose from her seat, her luminescent eyes flashing with an unnatural purple light. "Lies, human lies," she shrieked, her voice distorted. "They must not return. They must be contained." With shocking speed, she produced a device from within her robes, a small, pulsing orb that radiated an ominous energy. Before anyone could react, she hurled it toward the human delegation. What happened next occurred so quickly that my eyes could barely track it. The human security officer, Barrett, moved with impossible speed, intercepting the orb in midair. Instead of attempting to deflect it, he simply absorbed it. The orb sank into his outstretched palm as if entering a pool of water, its energy dissipating harmlessly. In the next instant, Jex Tula found herself immobilized, surrounded by a faintly glowing field that seemed to emanate from a small device in Director Okafor's hand. "Ambassador Tula is not herself," said Okafor calmly, as if discussing the weather. "She has been compromised. Her neural patterns have been altered. I suggest a medical team examine her immediately." Security personnel swarmed forward, surrounding the now frozen ambassador. Lontar signaled for medical assistance, his face grave. "How did you know?" he asked the director. "The same technology that attempted to scan our researchers 3 centuries ago," she replied. "We have become quite familiar with its signature since then. Someone has been using it on your own people, Grand Secretary, manipulating them from within." Lontar's ancient eyes widened. "How many?" "We have detected at least 7 individuals in this chamber with neural alterations consistent with deep pattern manipulation," replied Patel, consulting a small device on his wrist. "We can help identify and treat them, if you wish." The implications were staggering. If these humans were telling the truth, someone or something had been secretly manipulating council members, potentially for years or even decades, and pushing an anti-human agenda for reasons we could only guess at. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Medical teams tested council members for neural tampering. Security protocols were elevated throughout the station. And slowly, a picture began to emerge of a shadowy faction within the Union that had been working for centuries to ensure humanity remained isolated or was eliminated entirely. I found myself assigned as liaison to the human delegation, a role I approached with a mixture of trepidation and fascination. As I escorted them to their temporary quarters, I finally gathered the courage to ask the question that had been burning in my mind. "Why now?" I asked Director Okafor. "Why return after all this time? The reality distortion device was neutralized. You could have continued your isolation." She smiled, the expression transforming her severe features into something almost warm. Because it was time, Officer Naroon. We have spent 3 centuries developing in isolation. We have achieved things we never thought possible. But there's a limit to what any species can become when cut off from the broader community of sentient beings. You have been watching us all this time, I said, learning about us. Yes, she acknowledged. And we came to realize something important. Despite our differences, despite the mistakes of the past, we share a common future. The galaxy faces challenges that no single species can address alone. Climate collapse on 1,000 worlds. It's the expansion of the void between galaxies and the gradual cooling of the universe itself. These are problems of cosmic scale, I pointed out, beyond even the Union's capabilities. Perhaps, said Patel, joining the conversation. But they won't be solved without cooperation, without sharing of knowledge and resources. Humanity has developed technologies during our isolation that could help. And we are certain there's much we could learn from you. We arrived at their quarters, a spacious suite that had been hastily prepared to approximate human comfort standards. As the door slid open, Director Okafor paused on the threshold. 300 years ago, humanity chose isolation because we weren't ready for galactic politics, she said. And perhaps the Galactic Union wasn't ready for humanity. But times change. We have grown. We hope you have too. With that, she and her companions entered their quarters, leaving me standing in the corridor with a head full of questions and a strange sense of hope. 300 years of silence had ended. Whatever came next would change everything for humanity, for the Galactic Union, and for the countless species that called this galaxy home. The path forward would not be easy, but for the first time in centuries, it seemed possible that it might be walked together. As I made my way back to the council chamber to report, I found myself smiling. My third eye, the one that always betrayed my emotions, was wide open with excitement for the future. And to think it had all started with a coffee stain on my uniform.